Are you a forward thinker? Then you need an HR and finance platform that thinks like you do. Workday is the AI platform that helps propel your organization, your workforce, and your industry into the future. Workday, moving business forever forward.
The summer is heating up with Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four.
Light 'em up, Johnny!
On July 25th.
Time to save the planet.
What's the plan?
Trust me, I hate that
It's a
plan.
bad plan. Come on.
Terrible
That's
idea.
a stupid plan.
Prepare for fantastic.
We will face this together as a family.
Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four. First steps. Only in theaters July 25th. Rated PG-13. Some material may be inappropriate for children under 13. Get tickets now.
Another switchback. Wait, this isn't the top? Where's the summit? Why am I doing this?
At REI Co-op, we believe there are places within ourselves
Almost there. You got this.
that we find only outside.
Wow. This is worth it.
We have the gear, inspiration, and advice to help you get there. REI Co-op. Visit rei.com.
EVO. This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised. Venice, 1603, a city of masks and mirrors. A warren of winding alleys, gilded balconies, and whispers carried on the tide. By day, Venice dazzled with spectacle. The Doge presided from the Palazzo Ducale, lovers strolled in the Piazza San Marco, and traders hawked silks from the east. But beneath the Grand Canal, where the light couldn't reach, ancient things stirred. They called them I lupi sommersi, the submerged wolves. Born in the shadows of plague, nursed by rot, fed on desperation, they were spoken of only in hush and riddle. But they were real, and they were patient. Welcome back to The Devil Within European Vacation. This is Blood in the Olive Grove, Part 3. Chapter 1. The Wolves Beneath Venice. In the darkest days of the Black Death, when bodies outnumbered the prayers, the people of Venice turned to the water. Corpses were heaped into gondolas and cast into the canal. Thousands, maybe more. The bells tolled day and night, but the priests gave up. There were no more rites, no more consecrated burials. What survived the pestilence were the rats, the ravens, and the monks of the lower orders. But not all the monks were holy. A brotherhood emerged, calling themselves Gli Ignoti, the unknown. They descended into the old aqueducts, into the submerged catacombs beneath the sestieri. Their mission, they said, was to cleanse. But they didn't chant the Psalms. They whispered words not heard in Christendom. They lit candles shaped like teeth. Their robes smelled not of incense, but of mildew and blood. And bodies began to vanish entirely. And then animals, cats, dogs, pigs, and then people. In 1621, a glassblower named Ilia Giordano fell through a rotted plank in the Venetian arsenal while transporting his wares. He landed in a hidden tunnel flooded at the ankles. His torch flickered, the air was wet and wrong. Then he saw them. Eyes, dozens, yellow and watching from the dark. He described them later in his journals. Tall shapes in robes that clung like wet skin. In a circle, they surrounded something furred and crouched, with claws on human hands. It looked up at him and smiled. Elia fled. He left Murano. He moved to the Lido, cut out his own tongue with shears. He lived another 30 years, drawing patterns in ash, circles, teeth, eyes. His final note read, "Glass is meant to reflect, but some things shouldn't be seen." A century passed. The masks got prettier, but the secrets didn't. In the 1700s, during the height of Carnival, gondoliers reported nobles in elaborate disguise making regular trips to the flooded crypts beneath San Zaccaria. They traveled in pairs, never spoke, and each carried a small parcel. Meat that was fresh, breathing. Witnesses spoke of children taken from orphanages, of servants who vanished without dismissal. One gondolier, Gianni Berti, claimed to see them emerge from the catacombs soaked in blood, but they were laughing. He told the police, and the police laughed. He told the bishop, and he was dismissed. 3 nights later, his gondola was found adrift in the Giudecca Canal. Empty, except for his mask, and it was ripped clean in two. Even today, every February when the revelers take to the streets in feathers and velvet for Carnival, an old melody floats across the lagoon. It comes from a ruined chapel, half swallowed by time. A cracked bell swings once, then again. No hand on the rope. Locals call it La Canzone dei Lupi, the Song of the Wolves. Tourists think it's charming, romantic even, a quirk of old Venice. But the dogs cower, lights flicker in the palazzos, and without fail, someone disappears. Always a stranger, always alone. Their belongings float to the shore within days, but their faces are never seen again. Venetian gondoliers still whisper a creed, passed from oar to oar, father to son. Quote, "We row for coin, we row for love, we do not row below." They know where the deep channels lie, where the current runs too cold, where the air shifts without wind. There are tunnels beneath Venice that don't appear on maps, flooded corridors lined with teeth and bone, places where, if your gondola slows down, something else may rise. They say there are rides you don't offer, there are fares you don't take, and there are passengers you never see that you only feel. And one gondolier, an old man named Renzo, tells this story to those who pay him enough. He once took a woman dressed in all white across the canal. Her veil obscured her face, and she whispered no directions, but the water seemed to guide itself. When the boat arrived, she stepped out onto no dock, no land, just fog. She turned to the gondolier and said, "Tell them we're still hungry." And he never rowed again. Chapter 2. The Possession of Prato. Prato, 1876. Tucked in the heart of Tuscany, the town wore its faith like a second skin. There were churches on every corner, bells that marked the hour, and priests who knew your name. The people moved through life with rosaries in hand and silence on their lips. But faith, like stone, can crack. At the convent of Santa Lucia, perched on a hill above the textile mills, something unholy took root. It began with a song and ended with a silence so deep it seemed carved from hell. Some said it was hysteria, others blasphemy, but those who lived through it spoke only in whispers, and what they whispered was this: the devil didn't enter Prato, he was invited. Her name was Bianca Serra, 12 years old, orphaned by fever, raised among nuns in a convent of linen and lilac. She sang in a chapel choir. Her voice was so clear it made even the sternest abbess weep. But on the first Sunday of Lent, as she began the Sanctus, her voice cracked. Not from puberty, from something deeper. And then she began to speak. Not sing, speak, in Latin. Not from the hymnal, but in curses, in accusation. She pointed at villagers by name, naming sins no one else knew. She spoke of affairs, of abortions, of thefts buried in cellar walls. And when Father Giovanni stepped forward, trembling, she fixed him with an unblinking gaze. "You buried her beneath the olive tree." he collapsed and wept uncontrollably for an hour. After that day, the convent changed. Candles blew out with no breeze. The crucifix above the altar turned black overnight. Statues of the Virgin wept something darker than water. One nun, Sister Clara, claimed she saw Bianca levitate 3 feet above her cot. She counted the seconds. 32. Her lips moved the entire time, but the words came from elsewhere. Bianca began drawing symbols in the ash of the hearth. Not crosses, not pentagrams, but spirals, forks, slashes in triplicate. A professor from Pisa later identified them as Etruscan, and they were words of invocation and words of sacrifice. And her voice, it fractured. At times she spoke in layers, 3 voices at once, one rough, one animal, one deep and regal, one dry as parchment. The nuns began to sleep in shifts, and their prayers grew longer, and the chapel grew colder.
What if an appliance emergency didn't have to be? If your appliances suddenly decided they were done, don't stress. Best Buy has you covered with a wide variety of major appliances from trusted brands, in stock and available now. So you don't have to worry about laundry piling up, refilling the fridge, or that big dinner party you're hosting. Because Best Buy has the knowledge and expertise to get you the right appliance for your home. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
Choice Hotels gets you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like with the road trippers we see here in their natural habitat, the breakfast area at a Comfort Inn. Here's a dad teaching his son how to make waffles. Fluffy, golden waffles. There's a mom making sure her daughter eats some fruit to avoid the "I'm hungry" from the back seat. And a sibling standoff over the last muffin. This is the cycle of vacation maximizationing in all its glory. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive, America's #1 motorcycle insurer. Everything is more exhilarating when you're on your motorcycle, just like your bike is more protected when you choose Progressive Motorcycle Insurance. They offer coverage for your bike, starting as low as $75 per year. And they keep things affordable, with discounts like paid in full, multi-policy, and responsible driver. So raise your kickstands and get to quoting at Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. $75 premium is for state minimum coverage. Not available in D.C. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Hi, I'm Cyndi Lauper. My scalp was covered with psoriasis, which could lead to psoriatic arthritis. But Cosentyx treats both.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis 300 milligram dose and adults with active psoriatic arthritis 150 milligram dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at Cosentyx.com or 1-844-COSENTYX.
Cosentyx works for me.
Ask your doctor about Cosentyx.
Word reached Florence, and Rome followed soon after. The Vatican sent Father Matteo della Croce. Trained in Rome, he was calm, he was logical, he didn't believe in hysteria, and he didn't believe in demons. He arrived with relics, with incense, and with a healthy amount of skepticism. He met Bianca. He touched her forehead, raised a crucifix, and it bent in his hand. The next day, the holy water turned red, his room filled with whispers, names he hadn't spoken in years. He performed the rite of exorcism 3 times, and each time Bianca just laughed. On the second night, he fled. He left behind a journal, 43 pages. On the last page, he wrote, "She's not possessed by a demon, she is possessed by memory. And the memory has teeth." Desperate, the convent turned to science. Dr. Elisabetta Ronchi, a scholar of folklore and language, was brought from Bologna. She didn't pray. She asked questions. She sat beside Bianca and asked, "Who are you?" The girl answered without blinking, "I am the one they hunted in the woods. I am the mother of wolves, and I am not alone." Then the good doctor screamed for 12 hours, without breath, without break. And when silence returned, her hair had turned white. Dr. Ronchi was hospitalized in Florence, and she never returned to academia. Her final letter to a colleague read, "Language is a door. Some words should never be opened." Then one morning in October, the sun rose over an empty convent. All 32 nuns gone. Bianca gone. The gates were locked from the inside. The beds were made. The bread was still warm in the kitchen. Only one sound lingered, a low howl echoing through the chapel rafters. When officials arrived, they found claw marks on the pews, scratched deep, fresh. The altar was cracked. The baptismal font was shattered. The hymn book lay open, and its final page was missing. To this day, the convent remains sealed. Locals say no plants grow in its shadow. Tourists who wander too close claim to hear children singing in Latin, backwards. Ever woken up speaking a language you never learned? Email us at info@evocreative.com and follow us at The Devil Within Pod on Instagram. And leave a review, especially if your voice isn't always your own. Chapter 3. The Curse of the Island Wolves. Sardinia, a land carved by time, wind, and war. Older than Rome, wilder than myth. It rises from the Mediterranean like a fossilized beast, spine of stone and breath and salt. Its hills whisper the old names. Its caves echo with voices never buried. In the remote highlands of Barbagia, where even time seems afraid to tread, the people remember. They remember things older than language, older than men. They speak of wolves, but not the kind that growl beneath the moon, not the kind hunted by fang and fur. These wolves walk upright, cloaked in skin, cloaked in shadow. They pass through walls, they feed on breath, they leave behind no body, only a name and a tooth. They call them Lupi dell'Isola, the island wolves. And they're still there. 1879, a village near Nuoro, a night of wind and stars and omen. A child is born during a solar eclipse. The sun swallowed, the earth stilled. The midwife, an old woman named Annetta, had delivered dozens before. She'd never screamed. Until now. She claimed the newborn cried like a broken flute, claimed its eyes opened too early, too knowing. She said the child smiled, and that its mouth split not once, but twice. She claimed to see fur clinging to the afterbirth. The mother, pale and silent, bled out before sunrise. But the child lived, though no one would nurse it. That night, every sheep in the village was found dismembered, the barns painted in blood. The villagers said nothing, but from that day forward, Annetta never touched another child. Sardinia is a museum of stone. Nuraghe towers dot the landscape like broken fingers from the past. No one knows who built them or why, but locals say that they weren't made to keep things out, they were made to keep things in. Pietro Manca was a shepherd, curious, young, and stubborn. One autumn, he entered the ruins near Fani, climbed down the moss-covered stones, and he didn't come back for 3 days. When he did, he was naked, his hair had turned white, his skin scratched raw, and he couldn't speak, not from fear, but from loss. He had forgotten language. He drew only symbols in the dirt. He drew spirals, eyes, and one particular shape over and over. A face, long and sharp, with fangs. That winter, Pietro died in his sleep. His chest bore claw marks that hadn't been there the night before, and his hut stank of blood. And on the wall above his bed, a paw print, too large and too deliberate. 1934, Orgasolo, a one-room schoolhouse tucked into the hills. 12 students, 1 teacher, a routine day, until it became very not routine. When the bell rang for lunch, the nearby farmers didn't hear anything. When the parents arrived at dusk to pick up their kids, the building was gone. Not burned, not buried. Gone. Only the foundation remained. And the earth was disturbed, as if it was pulled from underneath. Some said it was a sinkhole, but there weren't any cracks in the foundation. There was no collapse. Locals whispered that the children had spoken of strange dreams. Men with glowing eyes, suits made of fur and teeth, voices under desks. One boy, weeks before, had drawn a spiral on the blackboard and cried when asked to erase it. The spiral remained until the building vanished. And during Mussolini's rule, black shirts were sent to Barbagia to civilize, to cleanse, to crush the rebels. They entered the hills with guns and flags, but they emerged broken. Of the original 20, only 2 returned, mumbling to themselves, covered in blood. And they spoke of men who moved without sound, who twisted their own bones, who sniffed the air like dogs. One described a smile that unhinged from the ear. Another, a voice that came from inside his skull. The autopsies on the others were sealed by military decree, but one page survived. It read, multiple incisions, hearts removed, jaw fractures, teeth marks inconsistent with any known species. And the case was buried. But the fog still lingers in those hills. Even now, Sardinian elders burn herbs at crossroads. They mix ash with wine. They teach children not to answer if someone calls their name from the mist, especially if it's a name they haven't used in years. The island wolves don't roar. They whisper. They knock once, then wait. Some say they're not evil. They're just hungry. Hungry for names, hungry for shapes, hungry for the echo of what we once were. And every few years, when the wind shifts and the stones sweat, someone vanishes. No blood, no scream, just a trail of paw prints that lead nowhere. But listen long enough, and you might hear the laughter. Half human, half howl. Thanks for listening to The Devil Within European Vacation. If you'll be in Italy this summer, email us at info@evocreative.com and follow us at The Devil Within Pod on Instagram, and let us know how your summer's going. Make sure you're following the show wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a review, especially if you've ever woken up howling. The Devil Within is an EVO production recorded live at Bel Air Studios in Los Angeles, California. For EVO Creative, I'm Brandon Morgan, your writer and host.